If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, my name is Robbie Hass. I'm the county engineer up here. So if you hate how your road is plowed, call Ann. Don't call me. But I know, did you want to say hi, Ann?
Just hello, Ann Sullivan, District 4 Commissioner. It's great to have a nice sized group here. We're making sure you have plenty of handouts available. There's snacks back there, and we're passing around a sign-up sheet. Please put your name, your email address, so that if we have updates on the project, we can blast that information out to you. All right, so I'll create this, and anyway, thanks again for coming this evening. Jacob.
Yes, my name is Jacob Baker. I don't think I know any of you, so that's fun to get to meet new people. I'm the acting project manager for the county on this project, be the person on site day to day overseeing things. So,
and we'll talk about that a little bit more where, as the project's going on, you're going to see Jacob in the field a heck of a lot more than you're going to see me, and so you'll get to know him. We'll let you know when there's interruptions, if something's happening in your driveway. Jacob's going to be your person to go to for that. So you can always call me, but I'll eventually call him, so might as well cut me out of it. We're all here, I hope, for the same thing. That's the Lower Gunflint Area Improvement Project. That is a long way of bunching together 3 different projects is kind of how this came about. So we're doing the Mill to Hill project, which is resurfacing the road from 5th Avenue West along the Gunflint, up the hill, all the way to Devil Track Road, the Four Corners intersection right there. We're also resurfacing Cutoff Road, and so part of that also includes realigning Old Ski Hill Road into Cutoff Road. So you've probably seen a lot of trees that have been removed in that intersection. One of the handouts, it's just a single page, 11 by 17, shows that realigned intersection. So just in a little more detail. Big thing too on this project, it was kind of some safety stuff. So, since I've been here now, a lot of conversations about that Four Corners intersection, about turning onto Cutoff Road from Gunflint Trail, even turning onto Pincushion from the Gunflint. And so there's some bypass lanes we've incorporated into this project that we'll talk about a bit. I'd say the biggest component of this, though, is a bridge replacement that's happening. So a lot of people don't know, the Little Devil Track runs under the Gunflint, and we have a culvert there. That culvert is, for us, what we call a bridge because it's at least 10 feet wide, state statutes, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, that culvert was built in the 1980s, needs to be replaced. It's in real bad shape. So we'll go over the history of the project, but I incorporated the bridge replacement since we're already ripping up the road. Let's make it a bridge, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. And then lastly, we ended up partnering with the Soil and Water Conservation District. They're going to be doing some in-stream work in the Little Devil Track River just downstream from where our project is. So it's kind of the timing of everything really allowed this whole massive conglomeration of work to come together. You'll see one of the handouts as well is from Soil and Water, so if you have more questions about that, I think they put their contact info on there. Stephen Janessi, Elena Hansel. If you need their info, please just let me know and I can get it to you. So let's start. So some of the things, like I mentioned, the history. I think it's really important on this to go over funding. How are we paying for this? This is close to an $11 million project. Where does that money come from? So we'll go over that. I'm not going to go over all 20 pages of the thicker 11 by 17 handout, but we'll just talk about some of the highlights. If you have questions about your specific property, just let me know. I'll try and answer it here. If I can't, we can talk about it later too, and that's fine. And then obviously lots of time for Q&A. So there is a handout too if you have trouble seeing this screen. I printed off the slides. It's very short. I want more time for you and I to talk than me just going blah, blah, blah. So, so really, how did we get here? This started, so I started here in August of 2020, and this project was already on the books. And so what happens is when you start to get some unique funding sources, namely federal funding, they start bugging you really far in advance. There's projects we're going to be working on in 2028 that I'm already having to fill out stuff for. And so you can imagine having to, kind of keep up on what we need to do in the county to help this. And so what we ended up being selected to receive was close to $1.5 million. And I'll go over every acronym. I don't expect anybody to know what they are. It took me a few years to even figure them out. But so it's federal funding and it's Surface Transportation Block Grant Program, so STBGP. What that means is it's a pocket of money that goes towards road construction. The feds hand it out to the state to then distribute. We get it here in Cook County every 5 to 7 years or so. And so we rotate with Lake and St. Louis and all the other counties in our district. So that's really where this started. Back in 2019, we were selected for it. The project started as just a resurfacing project. And so once we had that, I got here, my background is bridges, and so immediately I was like, all our bridges need to be replaced. And so I saw this one, because they have to be, we inspected them and said they need to be, not just because I want to. But that culvert was identified as deficient, and so that was really a big flag for me to say, all right, should we incorporate this into the project or not? As you can imagine, something like that, this culvert's 20 feet below the Gunflint. And when you want to slope something nicely, that bridge gets real big real quick. And so, like I mentioned before, and we'll talk about again, this project got up to 11 million. About half of that is the bridge alone. And so the bridge money has its own pot of money, road money has another pot of money. And so for me, it was, if we're going to include this, we need to start finding funding, basically, in order to do this. So I touched on the intersection improvements. A lot of that was added as we kept talking, even though we had very low turnout in our first few meetings. A couple phone calls later, and as this project went on, people had concerns about those intersections, the turn lanes that I mentioned before. Incorporating the cutoff road project and then the soil and water conservation project. We just landed on very similar timelines. We're working in the same area. Why not try and bundle them together? If we get one contractor, we each kind of save on mobilization costs. So somebody having to haul up all their equipment from Duluth or the cities, they're just going to do it for one project now instead of maybe 3 separate projects. And that can increase costs. And then lastly, and I touched on it with a few of you already, we were supposed to do this last year. I was really hoping to get that done, but we had some delays in project review and some permitting and stuff, and so I made sure all the funding that we were awarded wasn't going to go away. That was the biggest worry I had, millions of dollars on the line potentially, and so everything was fine. So pushing it a year, at the end of it in 10 years we'll all laugh and say, good, it got done. So I wasn't super worried about that. Funding. Lots of things, lots of acronyms, and so I think the big thing I think to remember is there's bridge money and there's road money. And so you can't spend one on the other, vice versa as well. So, I had mentioned that the STBGP funds, so that's your $1.5 million that we initially started with. Because our project was so far along, we actually ended up getting awarded more funds from other counties that didn't use it. And so that grew quite a bit actually. So we got just shy of 2.4 million now coming in from there, which is great. If I keep talking about the road funding there on the right, FLAP funds, so Federal Lands Access Program. That's a competitive grant that we have to pursue and convince people that we're super cool and worth giving us money for. And so we did. We filled it out. That was one of the first grants I applied for when I got here, and we got awarded, so that made me very happy. But you can see that's about 1.25 million. And then really any leftover funds that we need, meaning if there's any funding shortfalls in certain categories, we get state aid money every year, so CASA is County State Aid Highway. We have 23 of those in this county. The Gunflint is one of them, it's CASA 12. Any of the roads that you see that are numbered 1 through 23, those are our CASA routes, and so I get money from the state to do that. If we look at the bridge funding, a lot more acronyms. So we have BROS, they do this one out of order for some reason. It's off-system bridge replacement. But that goes towards bridge replacements, and so since we're doing one, we were able to receive $600,000. Protect, I admittedly don't remember what that one stands for. It's something about promoting resiliency, something. But basically, where it goes towards is, with increased climate events that we're dealing with, when you have culverts or you have bridges that are undersized and you need to make them bigger, you can spend Protect funds on that. And so we had about $800,000 available in our district up here, so all of Northeast Minnesota. I lobbied for it at our district level, and they really liked our project, so they said, here's $800,000. I was like, great. One that I think is really unique, OHF, so it's Outdoor Heritage Fund. Where that comes from is from the state legislature, and typically where it goes is environmental restoration projects. So you might be thinking, why did you get almost $3 million in environmental restoration funds? So when I went down there and we kind of made our pitch, our presentation to them, restoring the Little Devil Track River back to its natural state, the only way we can do that is by installing a bridge. And so that was kind of what we were talking about. They really like projects that can get on the ground, that have additional funds to go with them, that they know is going to happen. And so that really helped us in there. We've actually been awarded other outdoor heritage funds as well for different projects. You'll see some work on the Fall River happening in 2026, and hopefully in a few years from now on some of our other streams. So the fact that it's a trout stream helps as well. So we're really going to be able to, I think the Little Devil Track is 30 feet wide at that location. We have a 10-foot box culvert in there. So you can imagine what's happening, you know, if you look at the downstream part of it, you guys, I think you can see it from Google Maps even, how the bank is just eroding right there. And so part of Soil and Water's project is fixing that, but that was really a big selling point for us to get those funds, which was awesome. And then the last thing, the motor vehicle lease sales tax. That's a fancy way of just, it's bridge bonds. And so again, it's state legislature funding. They typically cover about 50% of any bridge that we put forward, and so that's about 50% of the bridge cost. Now, the important thing, depending on how much attention you're paying to this slide, you will notice 7 million and change plus 4 million and change does not add up to $10.7 million. So I actually got too much money for this project. And so for the bridge funding, since we're overfunded on the bridge side of things, we're actually going to give some of that back, the bridge bonds that go into the state. And so what that does, that just goes back into the pool, and somebody else, it might even be us on a future project, can use that. So what was great though is when we opened up this project and we're looking at who the low bid was, we awarded it for just under 10.7 million. I think our estimate was 10.54 for this project. So when you get that big and we're that close, I think it's within a few percent, I was very, very happy with this. So it was a long funding breakdown, but there's a lot of different money that we pursued and were awarded. I was very happy with how this turned out. Cutoff road really quick. This is a different pot of money now. If you remember 2018, I believe the transportation sales tax was passed up here as a 50-cent tax on, I think, everything we buy. It's a nice way of capturing tourist dollars up here without raising all of our taxes. And so that fund has generated a lot of projects already, redoing parts of County Road 45, redoing parts of Mineral Center Road. Those are two big ones that got done. There's still some cash in there and it still generates money for us, which is great. And so the Cutoff Road project is solely funded through that. That is just local. I think that TST fund is a great resource for, you know, local neighborhood projects like that. To me, it's perfect. That's why we did that. So we awarded that one for about $427,000. And then, yeah, I already touched on the where that kind of 50-cent tax came from. What are we doing? That's the big handout that you have, the big thick one. I'm going to touch on it just at kind of a high level. We can talk later too if you got some more questions. So if we start at the bottom, you can see where it says project start. In yellow is what is our Mill the Hill, our Gunflint project, our bridge replacement. In red is the Cutoff Road project. So I just want to keep those separate in everybody's minds. So if we start at the bottom, the project's starting at 5th Avenue West. And so from there, we're just resurfacing the road. As you make the turn near the water tower, that's where you'll start to see the 4th lane come in now. The center line of the road staying put. Nothing's moving left or right or anything. You know, the shoulder there is huge. And so you can tell, like, that's why they built it, was for a future additional lane. And so that's where we're adding the bypass lane. It's basically up to about Pincushion Drive. And it'll stop a little bit before that. But that gives us, I think it's a little over a mile of a bypass lane there, which you guys drive it probably way more than I do, but even just when I do it, thank God. Like, that will be, you know, when you get to the Pincushion intersection, it'll show it in your sheets there, in your handouts. You know, if you're turning right onto Pincushion, for example, people will be able to get around you just fine. As we keep going up and you get up to the Cutoff Road intersection, if you want to turn left onto Cutoff Road, there'll be a little bump out there so people can pass you as well. So that lane will be there. That 4th lane's not continuing, but we're having a bypass lane there for you. As you keep coming up and around the curve, you get to number 3 up there. That's our big bridge replacement. As I mentioned before, it's currently a 10 by 10 box culvert. So very small considering the size of the river. Once we were able to look at how wide the river is, how deep it is, and then to actually get some nice inslopes to that, it turned into a 160-foot long bridge, which is awesome. I know it's exciting for me. You don't have to be excited. I'm excited for it. I think the other cool part is the beams on it are going to be 8 feet tall. And so if you think, you know, yeah, so single span, pre-stressed concrete bridge, 8-foot tall beams, 160 feet long. So that'll go in. And then as we get up to number 4 there, the Four Corners intersection, we'll have through lanes, we'll have bypass lanes, so if you want to turn left onto Devil Track Road, people can get around you just fine. Similarly, turning right on Golf Course Road, people can get around you just fine. So, cutoff road, all we're doing there is putting back what's there as far as the pavement is concerned. We're replacing a few of the cross culverts that are underneath it, but otherwise it's not getting any wider. We're not doing, none of that's happening. It's just putting back what's there. And then the biggest thing, and like I had mentioned before, and it's in your handout there, is realigning that intersection. So Old Ski Hill Road comes in at a nice 90 degrees now to Cutoff Road. Cutoff Road will come in at 90 degrees to the Gunflint. So it just squares things up a lot nicer. I told you it was short. But there's a lot. And so, I would imagine there's probably some questions. Does anybody have any questions?
When will this all start?
Great question. So I was just talking to our contractor earlier this week. The first thing they need to do is put in a temporary bypass lane in order for them to build a bridge. So where we're putting the bridge, right next to that is going to be a single lane bypass bridge. And so they need to start doing that first, which is probably going to be anywhere between now and the end of the month. And so once that is built, which should take a few weeks, that's when traffic will go down to 1 lane on the Gunflint until they're done.
At the bridge.
At the bridge. At the bridge. So sorry ahead of time. Yeah.
So that bypass bridge will continually be open
Yeah.
throughout the entire project then?
Yep, it'll be it's a signalized intersection, so at either end of the bridge, there'll be a temporary, stoplight basically. And so, if it's red, please stop. And when it's green, you're welcome to go across it. Way in the back,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, if it's a one-way thing, we live in the middle of this section, we're not gonna know which way people are going.
Yeah, this is just at the
Not
bridge.
that many cars,
Right, just at the bridge.
Oh, only at the bridge.
Only at the bridge is it 1
Oh,
lane.
it's not the whole thing.
Correct, yeah, I misspoke before, sorry,
Okay.
yes. Dean.
This is basically a question at the bottom of it, like the starting point where
Sure.
you're at the water tower.
Mhm.
Is anything to be done to the turn lane onto the old Gunflint with, is it gonna be widened a little bit? When you're coming down the hill and the way.
Oh, and you're coming down, you're hanging a right on Fifth
There's
Avenue?
be more traffic with
Yes.
the new housing?
We're
I'm
just-
wondering.
No, that wasn't
Okay.
part of this one. I
Okay.
know that intersection has gotten a lot of attention
Mhm.
lately. I've gotten a lot of calls about it, especially as they're finishing the apartments. I know before they started even building there, before they cleared a tree, I had gotten some phone calls from the city planning and zoning and from other folks. Hey, what's going on? You need to look at this. Okay. And and so what we ended up doing is actually hiring a third-party consultant, like a traffic engineering, live and breathe, that type of stuff.
Sure.
And we're like, hey, I need your help. I need you to determine, do I need to do something here, or is this kind of a wait and see thing? And so what they determined is, and I apologize if you've already heard the phrase before, but it'll be Cook County busy.
Well,
It'd
it's
be
funny.
busy for us.
It's funny because I felt that needed to be fixed before the
Mhm.
apartment went in and before this project was even thought. That's why I was
Right.
hoping that it would be. But I get it. I just wanted to know if that was part of it.
Right, not yet. And it's something where the advice that we were given was just to wait and see.
Yeah.
And so we've given, there's some ideas there. Do you put a tunnel under the Gunflint for pedestrian? I know, I like that idea.
Yeah, there is a lot of families, and there'll be more families and kids getting
Right.
picked up on buses and stuff.
Exactly. Do we do that? Is it an overpass? I don't really like that idea. Do we close off Creechville Road to the Gunflint, make everybody go over to 4th Avenue? I kind of like that idea, but it's just wait and see right now. We're not
Yeah.
going to do anything
Okay.
yet.
Just curious.
Good
Thank
question,
you.
though. Mhm.
If it's trail, it will be blind for us if the traffic controls are beyond the curve and way up above Holland.
Just at the bridge.
So it's not gonna be one lane
Can
on
you
the
show
lower
us on your
part?
map?
Yeah, here, sorry, yes, yeah, just at the bridge, so just literally at number 3, right there. Will it be one lane? That's
So
it.
During the whole rest of the construction, it's gonna be, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, I can sleep tonight.
Heidi.
Are there any repairs going in on County Road 60 before this begins?
No, nothing super duper planned.
Well, County Road 60, take a drive up there this afternoon.
I know.
If you haven't. Us locals know that that's the way to get around this bullshit, and
Mhm.
so we're gonna be on that road.
6, 58, 60 are on our radar to really hammer once this is going, to really make sure that they stay up to par. I'm not signing, County Road 6 or Lindskog or 60 as an official detour. That's just for all of us, and you at home, you stay local. That's just our knowledge. That's just our knowledge. But so I'll be curious to see how busy they actually get, but I'm sure people will find out quick. But that's a good point. It's a good question. They're going to get hit pretty hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, nothing planned ahead of time. We'll keep up with it during the summer, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. And if we need to do more repairs, we will.
And you've done some recently, it looks nice, by the way.
Thank you.
Should start with that.
Thanks, Heidi. Yes.
So as I understand it, it'll be 4 lanes from Fifth Avenue to Pincushion,
From about the water tower
Water Tower.
to Pincushion, yeah.
Okay, right now it's 3, so
Right.
you're gonna add a lane.
Correct.
And then after that, it's only 2 lanes,
It'll go back to what's there. Yep.
which is 3.
Sorry. Yes. So after Pincushion, we'll feather it back to what's there, and then, the rest of the way is just kind of putting back what's there.
And while you're doing that,
Mhm.
it will be 1 lane open all the way out.
Just at the bridge.
So how are you gonna fix the road and let us drive on it?
A lot of times they'll do it half at a time.
Oh.
And so then, so you could, they might do 2 or 3 lanes, and so it might just be what it is, or they could do 2 lanes open and while they're working on the 4th, so then technically it would just be 1 up, 1 down. But at least there's traffic moving. At the bridge, it is literally one lane, and you're gonna have to sit at a stoplight and wait to take your turn to go across.
And it's a real bridge, not another culvert.
It's a real bridge, yeah. A real big bridge. Any more questions?
When's it end?
Hopefully before it snows. That's the hope. My goal is 1 year. The plan is 1 year. I don't like dragging projects out. It's inevitable something will come up. A big factor for us a lot of times is access to gravel pits for our contractors to get material out of. So whether you know or not, KGM is our contractor on this. They have a pit off the Ball Club Road. And so right now there's spring load restrictions on. I'm sure everybody's got mud on their boots at this point. But Ball Club Road is gravel. And so right now we're limited by that. And so once the road restrictions come off, then they'll really be able to haul on there. And so mid-May is typically when that happens. And then everything else, then it's down Devil Track, which is paved, and the Gunflint. So my hope though is, mid-October to me would be perfect. But if they can do it before it snows, I'd be really happy. Dean.
First of all, I really like this. I'm so happy this is happening.
Thank
I've
you.
been waiting for this passing lane going uphill forever. Plus, I think it's gonna be nice to have, kind of road. I like the idea that you're taking our information to shoot out information to us, like for us that are right there and our driveways are right there. Is that how, like if there's gonna be something happening there? Okay.
Yeah, so
let us know, or
the comparison I'll give to, obviously projects of this scale we don't normally do. The last one I can think of would be 5th Avenue West here in town, which Jacob was actually the PM on. And so what really worked well there was, kind of like I mentioned earlier, if we're going to be in front of your house, you'll get a knock on the door, you might get a letter, hey, on such and such date, such and such time,
Sure.
you won't be able to get into your driveway. We'll accommodate the best that we can.
That's understandable.
Yeah, and then actually what I'll do too before people leave is I'll put up We'll put up Jacob's contact info, and we'll put up my contact info too. So if you have questions on what's going on, please don't hesitate.
And that
to
is
reach out.
usually the best way. If you ever have a question, just call me, and it's my cell phone. I'll have it with me all day, and I can answer it quick instead of, you know, waiting for me to reach out to you or something like that. So.
Sounds good.
Right.
Maybe an outside question, not in your control. Is there any plan to change the speed limit?
So I won't say a plan, but what I will say is I know there have been a lot of conversations. We recently pulled down some of the speed limit signs that were there. I'll try and make this quick. We as the county cannot set speed limits. We do not have that authority. So the state does that. What we can do is request that the state comes up and looks at the road, and then they can determine what that appropriate speed limit is. And so what my thought was is for this project, once we're done, is to have them come up, because actually the other problem spot is the new alignment down here is technically incorrect. And so what I want to do though is wait until this is done, and I want to have them come up and look at the whole thing and determine what it should be. So.
Just that, I have a very local and specific concern about the experience when you pass the Devil Track Road. So now we're getting to maybe speed up traffic a little bit with the left turn lane. About our turn is about a quarter mile up the road. So I already experienced sometimes people,
Like
I go to turn left. And
up here somewhere? Yeah, yep, yeah.
And it doesn't feel always really safe, but
Right.
at least if the speed limit stays lower,
Right.
it will feel safer than if it's 60, because people are already doing 60.
Absolutely.
Frankly.
Yeah,
But I just think as we speed that up, I want to know what that experience would be like to suddenly go back to just normal.
right. Nope, that's fair. Yeah, I think once MnDOT has a chance to come up and look at it and then determine what, because I think, I think it was initially signed 40 up the hill and then 40 in front of Headstrom's. Am I remembering all that right? And so as we were replacing our signs, we'll check against MnDOT speed studies to see like, oh, is this all matching? Should we keep doing this? And that's where we found a lot of discrepancies, not just on the Gunflint, across the whole county, of these signs that were getting put up that aren't correct. The issue too is then they're unenforceable. So now it doesn't just affect my department. Now we're talking about law enforcement as well. And so really, honestly, if you got a ticket somewhere in there and you remember and still have it, it's wrong. Yeah, so I think once we're done though, to your point, it's true. I hear that on every project. Speeding's a lot of concerns on people's minds. I wish I had a silver bullet for it. It's a give and a take on, generally you make a road wider, people are gonna speed up a little bit. It's also too though, how it feels on the road as well. So if we can keep some of the vegetation a little closer, if it does feel a little bit more enclosed, that kind of tamps it down. Lots of driveways on the road, that tamps it down a bit, but it's a good point. It's a fair concern. I hear you on it. Yes.
Yeah, so two quick questions.
Yes.
One is, I've always been curious about the runaway truck ramp.
Yes.
And people use that recreationally.
Yep.
And so that's a huge safety thing.
It's a great picture though with the water tower. So the truck ramps staying put. Obviously, we know why we need that there.
Right.
I was just talking. We were talking. There's a big sign ahead of it that says "truck runaway ramp." So I don't know what to do about that. If I'm being perfectly honest. There's already the sign there. You don't want to put up a gate, right? Like that kind of defeats the purpose of it then. But I don't know.
Just curious.
That's a good point.
And then the other question is noise.
Yes.
And I know this probably isn't a county highway issue, but jake braking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we can hear it. And
Yep.
we don't even live on the Gunflint.
Right.
And so it's a perpetual, constant thing.
Right.
Yeah. So
No, I hear you, and that's why I was surprised with the apartments. Even I'm waiting for all those phone calls once they move in, which is fair. I know there was that meeting. When the heck was it? A couple of years ago with the city, I think, and there was a lot of input that was gathered. We all know why people jake brake, right? It saves the brakes. It's safer that way. We had that runaway one a year ago, 2 years ago that happened. I think just over here. I know when our truckers upgrade everything, I know they've gotten quieter. as quiet as those get, you know. But it's a good point.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that ties into the speed limit in the future. So
Oh,
when
good
MnDOT
question.
comes up,
Sure.
I don't know if those two are tied together.
I don't know if they would be. I know when MnDOT does their speed studies for us, when they come up, it's honestly, they kind of have just a guy in a truck, and he goes and sits on a road and he counts cars, and then kind of looks at the surroundings, look at the existing speed limit, they'll look at a crash history and stuff, and then they'll kind of assess that. And then we'll talk a bit, what have I heard locally, you know, and then that's kind of what determines it. So that could be, that's part of it for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I want to know if you're going to be doing anything with the driveways, standalone?
Yes, so if you look, I think in the big handouts, and it can be a conversation we can all have, but our plan, my plan initially is always to, you know, extend the pavement, not all the way down your driveway, but, you know, the first 10-ish feet off of the road there, to kind of help. It helps with erosion and that stuff. So if you want it, great, we're already doing it.
Yeah.
If you don't want it, let us know, and we can, yeah, take it off the list. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the questions I've had as commissioner is, what about my mailbox?
Yes.
Could you share with people what the plan is for mailboxes?
Yes, a lot of coordination. I think the biggest change with mailboxes will probably be on the old Ski Hill Road and Cutoff Road work that we're doing. So I'd heard from some folks on Old Ski Hill Road about all their mailboxes are on Cutoff Road. Can they move over to Old Ski Hill Road? At the end of the day, it is up to your mail carrier, so convincing them that moving them is fine. My understanding from what I have heard is they don't care, so we'll scoot them over there. For your mailboxes that are on the Gunflint, the general plan is kind of, you know, what we'll call like salvage and replace, or if you don't have a swing away mailbox, we'll put one in there for you. So if you have a super special one or something like that, please just let us know, and then we can kind of hide it away and reinstall it later. But generally speaking, you know, it's just kind of, we'll remove yours and put it back. They're pretty short process when we do that. So I would not expect a mail interruption. I think that might be the question in that. But if there is, we'll definitely let you know. So yeah, we're all going to talk a lot. And, yes, Heidi.
I know you're super excited about your bridge.
Yes.
Are we gonna notice it above? Because we're not gonna walk down the hill and go under it and look at your 8-foot beams.
That's okay.
But when we're driving down the
Yeah.
road, is it gonna be different?
It shouldn't be. It'll actually, what the nice thing too is, you know, we're all familiar with that intersection. There's not much super elevation on that corner right now. And so the bridge is actually all at a super elevation because the bridge is on a curve, which isn't ideal. I admit that. We played around with realigning the Gunflint, trying to make it straighter over the crossing. And we just, it couldn't work because what was happening was your entrance and exit curves on and off the bridge were starting to get really sharp compared to what's already there. And so I think the only thing you'll notice is, you know, maybe like a warning sign before the bridge that says, you know, slow down. You know, bridge might be ice, you know, bridge ice is before road, something like that. But you shouldn't.
That's my next question.
Yeah, you shouldn't see any. Well, you'll see barriers. Hey, there'll be barriers on the curve now. So there we go. Yeah, so so it'll be two. If I remember right, I think it's two 12-foot lanes on the bridge, and then the shoulders are huge. I think it's almost up to 8 feet on either side, maybe.
Not totally sure.
They're big, and so there'll be a lot of space on that bridge, not only for snow storage, but also, you know, in case something and you got to move over or whatever. So, yeah.
Will there be chevrons?
No.
Thank you.
We're actually, speaking of chevrons, we're taking them all down at the end of the trail. So in case you didn't know that, we figured, you get applause at a town hall, that never happens. But yeah, we figured that out today. Our Josh Dix, our sign tech, who's been doing all the curve analysis in the county. I know this is off topic, but I was kind of excited about it. Looked at the speed studies at the end of the trail, compared it to the speed limits, compared to what the curves are there. Chevrons are unnecessary, so they're all coming down.
Yes.
There we go. All right.
I'll take you to dinner for that.
Thank you. I'll take it. My wife's here, so it'll be for two.
Absolutely.
Gene.
Yeah, so one question about the unofficial bike lane. I know it's not a bike lane. Could you just speak about that?
Absolutely.
Pavement, gravel.
Right. So as you're coming up here and we're adding that fourth lane, you can see it on, you can't zoom in on your handout, but if you look at it, so on the 4 lanes will all be 11 feet wide, and then there'll be a 5-foot paved shoulder on both sides. And so that'll at least get you up to pin cushion. So that's kind of what we could fit in there. If it got much wider than that, you know how steep that hill is on the lakeside. We're already having to fill in a little bit in some spots, but so we could fit in about 5 feet. Any more questions? Yes, I.
Did you put that 5 feet in with or without rumble strips?
No rumble strips.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jake breaking's loud enough. We don't need rumble strips.
You know I love Jake breaking. Tells me that their truck is working. If any of you want to know, a fully loaded truck is 16 elephants. So if you don't like Jake brakes, just think about 16 elephants in your truck.
All at once?
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Any more questions? I mean, we'll be here for a while. I'll probably get some food. And if you haven't, please go get some. That's what it's here for. So I appreciate everybody's time. I can flip through things more. Like I said, I'll be here. So if you have more questions, just let me know. Cool. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you.